I'm doing something a bit different today, and no, it's not making long Furbies. Maybe I will do that one day. Today, let's take a little trip down memory lane and come to terms with the fact that most of the shows we watched were really effed up. Before I begin, let me introduce myself. My name is Tara Mooknee, and this is the only channel on YouTube where all videos are written and produced by a cow. Unfortunately, she couldn't be in the video today because even the mention of the name Mr. Fitz sends her running out of the room. She just couldn't hack it. But if you like and subscribe, she might appear in the next video. Now, it's no secret that student-teacher relationships are a huge trope in teen dramas. But why? It's almost a requirement of teen soap operas. Now, portraying student-teacher relationships isn't inherently bad, because the reality is, it happens. It's very gross, and it's very illegal, but it does happen. Unfortunately, a lot, and I mean a lot, of teen shows and films do a bad job when it comes to student-teacher dynamics. Some even make a joke out of it. Even recently. Okay, in fairness, Riverdale is such a show that I feel like it exists outside of morality. I can't even take it seriously. Neither can the people in it.
They usually don't even know what's gonna happen. Like they usually make it up as they. I hate to say that, but it's true.
Well, I've died every season, so.
That's true.
Maybe this is for real this time.
Maybe it's gonna stick for once.
But the point is, even today in 2021, this taboo is marketed as a fantasy to teenagers. Not to the same extent as before, but the fact that there are TikTokers who make POVs where they're the teacher and you're... I'll just show you. There's an audience for these, as you can see from the comments, and I don't want to kink shame, but I really hope the people commenting are of age. Even so, it's a weird thing to fantasize about because... you know why? It's weird, okay? Rather than going through every single one, I'm gonna zoom in on a few specific examples. Examples from TV shows, specifically teen shows, that I think do a particularly bad job. As in, they condone it. They just outright act like it's okay. So... yeah. I'm going to be talking about 4 examples in teen shows, starting from least to most problematic. Not in terms of which character is the most evil or predatory, but more on a scale of how much does the show condone these monstrosities? This one's gonna be a doozy. On the one hand, rewatching these shows was fun and comforting for the nostalgia, but also a kick in the teeth because I had no idea just how messed up those relationships were. Before I name the first culprit of today, I would like to discuss the phenomenon of how teens are almost always played by actors in their 20s, sometimes even late 20s, or even 30s. It's a bit odd, but there are reasons for this. In short, underage actors need to be chaperoned, can't work as long, and can't do scenes. There's a lot more reasons behind this practice, and the consequences of it are fascinating. So if you are interested in this casting practice, Ada On Demand has a whole video dedicated to it, and I would highly recommend you go watch it. Now, I mention this because I think it's part of the reason why writers feel more comfortable portraying student-teacher relationships. Having an actual 15-year-old perform an intimate scene with an older actor would be morally repugnant and, of course, illegal. And putting those things aside, it would also be visually repulsive. Having an actor that's older and doesn't even look that age makes it more palatable. I'll elaborate on that point in just a second. This leads on to my first case study of the video. First, we've got That show, maybe you've heard of it. Archie has an affair. I actually mean he was abused, but I don't want YouTube to limit the reach of this video. By a teacher named Miss Grundy. KJ Apper was 19 when season 1 of Riverdale came out, which isn't much older than a high schooler, granted. But I would argue, and I think most people would, that this guy looks older than his age. So when you've got an older actor who's playing a teen having an affair with an older character, but they look similar in age, it doesn't truthfully depict the fucked upness of the dynamic. Visually, it looks like two adults. By the way, it would not be okay for an adult actor and a minor actor to do such scenes just because the minor looks of age, obviously. Just want to stress that. I think that's how the showrunners get away with it. And that's why there was such outrage over cuties, because the actors were actual children. Now, I need to put my English degree to some use because I'm in so much debt. So I'd like to analyse the portrayal of Miss Grundy, showing any sex or statutory grape scenes with a student and a teacher is gratuitous as far as I'm concerned. And when Riverdale does it, it's in a very glamorized light. That being said, spoiler, Grundy's death is quite interesting to me. The fact that she dies in a brutal way by someone who justifies it by saying they wanted to get rid of sin in the town suggests to me that the writers weren't on her side. The fact that she is seen kissing an underage boy and then minutes later is murdered kind of implies that she had it coming. Now, personally, I'm not a fan of capital punishment, even for the most violent criminals, but I do think her death sent the message that she was someone who needed punishing, if that makes sense. Maybe I'm giving Riverdale too much credit here, but I think that the fact that her and Archie don't end up together because she dead, and the fact that they show her with multiple students highlights that the writing isn't condoning her, maybe. Unlike, say, Pretty Little Liars. Disgusting! Where Arya and Ezra do end up together. They get married, implying that they were meant for each other all along, so it's justified. We'll get to that later. For now, let's talk about a similar-ish situation, but instead it's on Gossip Girl. XOXO. Overall, they did a worse job in my not so humble opinion. In the second season of Gossip Girl, Dan Humphrey, who thinks he's poor even though he lives in a huge loft in Brooklyn, has a relationship with Rachel Carr, a new teacher from Iowa. This story is a little more complicated because it involves third-party players, and obviously, spoiler alert, here's a summary of the storyline. Serena and Dan are still dating when Rachel starts teaching at the school. Blair has been rejected for early admission for Yale, and when the new teacher, Miss Carr, gives her a B, she tries to intimidate her to up her grade, but she refuses. Blair then gets the spot at Yale because Serena turns it down, but she still wants to punish Rachel, so she invites her to the opera, then stands her up. Rachel tells the head teacher, and Blair gets detention and her Yale offer is put on hold. Blair sends a tip to Gossip Girl saying that Dan and Rachel are having an affair, which at the time is false. Blair gets found out and is then expelled. Blair's dad calls a meeting at the school to get Blair back in. Same night, Serena sees Dan and Rachel in a cafe together hugging and takes a photo. But just after Serena leaves, Rachel goes, "No, this is inappropriate, but call me in 10 years. Which is still grooming, Rachel, but okay, Blair's supposed to be the villain in all this. Serena gives the photo to Blair, who shows it at the parent meeting. Rachel is then fired. Dan and Serena break up. Dan rebounds with now ex-teacher Rachel, who initiates, by the way. But again, Blair's apparently the villain. The school didn't have enough evidence of the affair, so they rehire Rachel to avoid being sued. And next episode, Rachel, whilst being a teacher again at the school, sleeps with Dan, a student, in the costume cupboard at play rehearsals. Blair gets rejected by Yale because someone tipped off Yale about her framing Rachel for having an affair, and guess what? It was Rachel. Then Rachel does her some monologue about how she's bad and very sorry and doesn't know what happened to her. You were inappropriate from the start, Rachel. You just later revealed your true colours. Apologies for rehashing the plot in such excruciating detail, but I felt it was necessary for me to explain why the writing was morally dubious. So when Rachel is fired for meeting a student outside of school and hugging them, and finds out it was Serena who took the photo and sent it, she gets pissed with Serena. Like, oh, I got fired because you shared the photo of me doing the bad thing. No, you got fired because you're shitty. The arc of this plot line and Rachel's exit monologue paints her actions as if she was tainted by the lack of morals in elite Manhattan. She was a good person until she came to Constance Billard, which is just not an excuse. Yeah, teaching is stressful, but you don't go on dates with your students. Seems like common sense. Next. This one's a doozy. And this teacher may not have affairs with students, but by God, he needs to be put in jail. And that's we'll just call him Waistcoat. Mr. Waistcoat. I mean, where do I even start? He's done so many effed up things, but the writers are like, oh, well, he means well. Shall we just list a few of his slip-ups? When he spied on Finn, a student, in the shower, and then planted drugs in his locker in order to blackmail him into joining Glee Club. When he pressured a student to come out of the closet. When he sang blurred lines with his underage students. When he suspended a girl for not wanting to wear a bikini on stage. When he got his students to twerk. Okay. And when he was told not to, he threw a tantrum because he really wanted his underage students to twerk.
On one condition.
What is it?
You and the Glee Club stop twerking. For good.
Sorry, Sue, but there's no way in hell that I'm gonna make that deal.
Oh, for God's sake, William, that's your red line?
There's more, but I think those give us enough insight. So, how and why did Glee get away with this? Especially considering he's not portrayed as the villain, but instead a dedicated teacher. Because Glee is cursed.
You were right to shine the spotlight on the fact that those kids are minorities. Because you're all minorities. You're in the Glee Club.
Mr. Shu always said, but you're all minorities. But he never said, but you're all minors.
Glee was a weird show. To think that Sue was supposed to be the villain and Mr. Waistcoat the hero. We were tricked. She did push someone down the stairs though, which isn't ideal. Last and definitely not least, oh no, it's the worst. Do I want to do this? Do I have the strength? So, let's talk about Pretty Little Liars. Specifically, Aria and Ezra, or as the fans call it, Ezria. Get me out of here. They have a bunch of fan edit videos on YouTube. Oh, and the comments.
They were the original PLL ship and they were perfect together. I'm crying. This is adorable. The people who dislike this are just jealous.
I'm guessing these are kids, so hopefully they'll just grow out of it, and I don't blame them. I blame the writers of the show for portraying this relationship as okay. Not just okay, but aspirational. Shall we begin? In the pilot, Aria and Ezra meet in a bar and hook up. The next day, Aria finds out there's a new teacher, and guess who it is? It's Ezra. And his reaction to seeing Aria in the classroom is this.
Holy crap.
And somehow this moment is forgotten by everyone else in the room straight after. And you might think, that's really bad, but Ezra may have seen her and thought she was college age and now feels really disgusted with himself. Well, sweaty? Firstly, he knew she was underage, which we'll get into later. And even if he didn't, he still pursues her after finding out her age and her becoming his student. And they go on to have a relationship. Later on, they tell her parents, and understandably, they are furious. But they keep calm and carry on. Then Byron, Mr. Mean Old Daddy, puts Ezra forward for a nice job in New Orleans instead of jail. And they're angry with him for that. Send him to jail, Byron. If you won't, I will. I'll I'll gladly do it. There you go, Ezra. There's your little jail cell. Bye-bye. Now, you may remember me mentioning that Ezra hooking up with Arya was no mistake. He knew her age. Major spoiler alert. Basically, it turns out that Ezra also got with Ali, who was 15 tops at the time. Then after Ali went missing, Ezra pursued Arya in order to get information from her about Ali for his novel he was writing about her disappearance. Weird guy. Arya was not the first minor Ezra got with. In the pilot, Arya was 15, Ezra was 22. After Ali finds out about the novel, they break up for like 3 days and get back together. And this relationship is still portrayed as true love. They get married at the end. You know what would have been awesome? If Ezra died. Again, I'm not for capital punishment, but I think it would have been a message from the writers to say, hey, we're not condoning this. And kids and teens aren't fully developed, so they can't understand the full ramifications of the subject matter that they're watching. It's like how certain YouTubers, Jake Paul, with kid audiences are some of the most morally repugnant people on the platform because their audiences don't know any better. And why should they? They're kids. The writers of Pretty Little Liars, however, are not. So stop that. So what can we do about this? As individuals, not very much. But beyond suggesting TV writers portray these issues in a realistic and non-romanticized light, I would suggest combating misconceptions via social media. In a non-preachy way, of course. You know, like calling out adult TikTok creators that reinforce this trope. The generation that watched Glee and Pretty Little Liars are now adults and are taking to social media to say, hey, this is really messed up. And guess who else is on social media? Teens. So hopefully they'll see that and be like, oh yeah, that is messed up. That being said, perhaps some of us have gone a bit too far. I know a lot of people are going to comment Mr. Schuster from Glee, which is totally fair. He's creepy. But people really need to stop dragging his actor into it. The Matthew Morrison memes have kind of turned into harassment. Yeah, you've got a point there. I hate to be a killjoy, but maybe we should lay off him. The writers are at fault, not the actors. I'm not saying we can't joke around. Roast the character all you want. Casey Alonso did a great video ranking the crimes of Matthew Morrison, but it was mostly about his roles, not actually him.
Of course, it goes without saying that this video wasn't meant to be like, oh, Matthew Morrison is a terrible person. We're not attacking Matthew Morrison's character. We're attacking Matthew Morrison's characters.
Let's maybe not make petitions to send him to Guantanamo Bay. Maybe not. As amusing as it is for us, I can imagine it would make him feel pretty shitty. But send Will Schuster there by all means, because he needs to go to jail. Stat! Anyways, I think that's enough for today. I'm not very experienced when it comes to media analysis, so rather than definitively unpacking this issue, I wanted to just start the conversation. So do let me know what you think. And I didn't even touch on how teen girls are sexualized in the media, so let me know if you want a video on that. On a much brighter note, let's do our pet subscription shout out. Today, we've got a bunny called Pepper. She's an adventurous girl who eats her owner's homework, true story, and walks on a leash. And she is even a survivor of uterine cancer. If she doesn't deserve a round of applause, I don't know who does. We love you, Pepper. And that's it for today. Make sure to subscribe, because when you do subscribe, you become a little subscription. And when you become a little subscription, I will keep you underneath my pillow with the rest of my little subscriptions. Have a swell day and dog bless. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now. Bye-bye. Bye-bye now.